See nothing.
Except for
Can I close the door?
Hogan zeros or something. Never watched it.
We go down to 5 or go downstairs?
You know nothing about it.
I can see all of you better from here.
Perfect. Good afternoon. We have quorum. Can we call to order the meeting? First thing to review is the agenda and the adoption of the agenda. There are no questions to that. Can we get a motion to approve the agenda? Motion to approve the agenda.
I move we adopt the agenda.
Second.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving forward. It's pretty long minutes, not too much. Actually, I read all the minutes. If there are any questions to the minutes or you want to add to the minutes from our last meeting in September. If there are no additions or adjustments to the minutes, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I need a motion first.
You need so moved your motion.
Oh,
I
we
move
need
we
a
accept
second, and then
the
we need to
minutes of the
approve it.
meeting as presented.
And can we have a second?
I'll
Second?
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Just quick question, there are any public comments? I'm going to hand the time to Jody to give us a bit more update to what was, any updates that she got from last meeting as well as a new person.
Yes. So I did pass around a second half of some of the contact us and some of the emails that we received. This comes from 2:30 p.m. and after that week. And you'll note that some do not have names with them. There were some folks that asked that that be kept off for privacy, certainly. So, but I would say majority was very much in favor of keeping the book in the collection, and a lot of thanks that I at least received on my end of things for your work on this and for following a process and working through that. So just wanted to share and all of those. And those names that were there, I did have permission to share that, or they asked specifically, please share this with the board.
I would like to add that I would think that the entire situation certainly was a vote of confidence for the library staff and the professionality of the staff. And that did not go overboard. So congratulations, you guys.
Yes.
Well, we will pass that along for certain to the staff as well. That certainly came through in the messages that were shared as well that evening.
I would like, as the public, I would like to make a comment. I want to tell the library board, I think you really did a great job. Not only on the decision you made, but you showed, you put the time and energy in to really review the book and make a good decision. I think that showed. So, good job.
So I didn't have necessarily anything else. I guess I would reiterate a thank you to all of you, because I know you all were very diligent about walking through the process, and it was all new for us, certainly. To have it rise to this level, a lot of new experiences and new lessons learned. Certainly on the communication side of it, I've been reflecting with Nick Coctavi about having that communication plan in place, noting how much media came. Certainly, I think that was noted as the second most media in the EOC.
Oh.
So
I do have a follow-up question. So I was telling Frank, I'm starting to bring with me every meeting now, the process and the freedom to read and all those things. But, you know, in hindsight, at the August meeting, is that what you expected, is to have that and then do a follow-up meeting? Or would there be a time when we could just make a decision? Well, I guess we wouldn't have read the book, and we always should read the book. So I'm just thinking out loud here. I just wanted to get your thoughts on, is that how you expected the process? Because it just felt like that meeting kind of got out of control a little bit with the timing and really following our process. And it just felt very, I don't know, maybe that's just how it's going to feel, very uncomfortable. But I just keep thinking, you know, if this happens again, what can we learn from that?
Could I add to that, that I think it's important, we need to let people, let the community know what is happening. So I would hate to have a situation where somebody appears, they either are for or against whatever, and we make a decision at that moment, you know, the first time we hear about it. I don't think that would be right. What I'd like to see is a 3-step process, but always on the advertised agenda. The initial complaint, you know, somebody could show up during the public comment section of a meeting and try and, you know, ask for something to be removed or added, whatever. We would simply accept it at that point and then discuss it the following meeting on the agenda. It would become an agenda item, so that when the agenda is publicized, it would be on it. And then if we decided from that point that we wanted to go further, then we would put it on the agenda for the next meeting. So it would always appear on the agenda before we had to take action on it. Because I'm uncomfortable about taking action on something that people don't know about.
Can you reiterate, like, so you said on the,
Pardon?
so 3-step process, the first step is to,
I'm sorry.
you said you had a 3-step process, and the first step was to receive the input, is that right?
Yeah.
And then
you know,
the second?
When she appeared at the meeting the first time,
Right.
that would have been fine, provided we had no discussion on it at all. We simply accepted her comments, went about our meeting as planned. But, you know, went on record as saying, okay, we have received these comments. Then it appears for action on the next meeting, but no action, no discussion even would take place during that initial presentation, because we were blindsided. So,
Well, and that's really what happened in practice, but I think we just all, I was just feeling like, is this how it was supposed to work or not? Yeah.
well, see, that's what I'm saying, it shouldn't work that way.
I think that we did get the input. We received the input on the day itself, right, in August. And then we decided collectively that we will make a decision that we will have to read and then discuss the following meeting. And we did put it on the agenda. I mean, irrelevant of whether we said that we were going to make a decision in September, because it's on the agenda and because it's already out there, we would have gotten a big crowd anyway. I think because of the nature of the topic being discussed, we would have gotten a big crowd either way, and they could be sitting there and giving you their input and everybody making their comments either way. I think that would not have solved your immediate concern of kind of like the overwhelming public presence, I guess you'd say that. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I don't know, I was having trouble hearing.
Sorry.
My hearing aids are not working real well right now.
No, I'm saying that the process went almost like what you mentioned, in the sense that we did receive the input from the lady in August, and then we said we would receive it and we would discuss it the following meeting in September. And it was on the agenda, but irrelevant of whether we made a decision or not, because it's such a high-profile item, I think that you would have gotten the public presence, irrelevant of whether we decided to make a decision at that time.
Well, see, if a person might, quote, take it to the board and not really appear. They could, we could allow them to petition the board essentially without appearing, which would mean we still have 2 meetings. The first meeting would be, okay, this is when the discussion's going to take place. So,
Okay.
round up your troops and come in and do your thing.
So I'm thinking,
I have mixed emotions about the fact that the banners were not represented at the public meeting. Now, I know those are the kinds of meetings that get out of hand.
right.
You get the 2 sides yelling and shouting.
Well, they could have come.
Let's table this and
Yeah.
let that be a task for Jody to review and from my
Well, and maybe it's
perspective,
just,
post-incident analysis.
Maybe I just felt uncomfortable because we hadn't gone through the process before. And in the way she presented it, it felt like we needed to answer. So maybe even in the letter to say, if you want to appeal this, come to the board. They will not make a decision or discuss at that time, but you can make your case and we'll, just more for the patrons' expectations too, to manage that a little better.
And I do like that point because I believe that when someone puts pen to paper, rather than having to present it impromptu, that there's more thought in what is written than what is spoken.
If I may,
Yeah.
the process worked exactly like it's supposed to. And if I just parallel that to county board, anybody's allowed to, prepared or unprepared, come into the meeting and offer their 5 or so minutes. And it's not uncommon for somebody to want to come in without being scripted and without the paperwork, because I've seen it in practice and I've seen the fear of it in practice of, if I let everybody know beforehand, I may be behind the gun, if you will. You may be prepared to tell me no before I come in. And so I don't think this individual wanted the element of surprise or whatever. But in this scenario, they came in without any prescription as to what they were going to do. You've been through this before too. I look at you as former mayor. They were able to plead their case. We might have been on our heels because we had not done this before, and the topic, the subject matter wasn't like, I'm going to donate $10,000. It was the temperature was turned up in the room because of the topic. The part that wasn't maybe explicitly seen or known is staff was interacting in between those 2 points. And so if you went straight from somebody coming in with their 5 minutes to, we're here to make a decision, what probably needs to make it to your ears is Jody and staff spending a lot of time not only working with the individual who decided to make a formal request, but also with the staff to say, are we prepared for this? And I'll be honest, if the decision would have been to ban that book, it probably would have said, pause, we need to bring in an attorney for the next round because we weren't necessarily prepared
Absolutely.
to make that legal decision. And so it might not feel like it because it was the first time through, but the process worked exactly like it's supposed to happen. Party A was heard, Party A had a chance to bring all of her friends and the community along. You're probably not going to see something as publicized as this the next time a public comment comes through, but through our channels within county government, traditional or non-traditional, it would have been a fraction of what was utilized from a media perspective.
Right.
So NPR covered it, Star Tribune covered it multiple times.
Easy.
Local activists, I'll say, and others, they rallied their troops. And I would venture to guess half the people in the room were not from Carver County. On the flip side, the individual that brought it forth had every right to do the same thing, to leverage the media, to do blah, 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 blah. So in the end, I guess, so we don't come back to the topic, at least today, so you can move on to your agenda.
Right.
I recognize what Jim said and what others said is because when I was asked by the media, will you give us quotes? I mean, if you put it in that context, I said there's really not a story here other than staff did what they were supposed to do. We had a process. We reaffirmed some titles don't belong in the youth section. We reaffirmed that everybody has a voice. We reaffirmed the process. We reaffirmed Patrick and his staff get to select the books and we have their back. We also reaffirmed that there's probably no chance that we're going to ban any book in the adult section. And I said these same comments at the county board a couple weeks ago. And so that might sound controversial to people's ears that are looking for headlines, but it was such a disappointment for the 5 members of the media that were there because there weren't fireworks.
I know.
There was respectful listening to the issues, listening to people's voices, contemplating the voices that weren't in the room, and making a decision based on the information we had. And so I think Jody did a great job. I think Patrick's team was affirmed. I think that we instilled confidence in the system and the process. And even if you didn't like the outcome, you have to respect that everybody was respected in the process.
Yeah, I do want to, only comment I'd like to say is that it was done very civilly. There was no, like, it was done with civility and with respect for everybody, as far as I could see from my point of view.
I would make one suggestion of, I think it was done perfectly, but if the person who made the original request had come in with 15 supporters, you would have been blindsided. If they come in, one person should speak and then plan on exactly what happened afterward.
Okay, you want to introduce your...
Yes, we have an exciting introduction. We have a new Chaska branch manager with us tonight, Kevin Spencer. So we want to welcome him, and I'll let you share a few words if you'd like.
This is what I call the 10-second bio. It seems like I should have it memorized now. So I come from an education background. I was a teacher for 25 years. Most of that as a library media specialist. Moved on from education, and I've been, most recently, I was the branch librarian in Montgomery in the Wasikiwa library system, which basically means I was the branch manager plus the everything librarian plus I was the regional tech person, so I had many hats there. I lived in Chaska for 9 years, and I've been associated with Chaska Valley Family Theater for 15 years or so. So I know a lot of people throughout town, and I'm just really happy that I can contribute to my own community now. Super happy to be here.
Welcome. Moving on. Was there any other public input?
None, nope.
Glad there's no public person here too. Next item is action items, establishing 2024 meeting dates and location.
I'm just pulling this up. So this is our time of year when we look at the schedule ahead for 2024 to look at where we're going to be rotating to. So if anyone has questions, otherwise.
I move we accept the board meeting dates and locations as presented.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
May I interrupt?
Aye.
So,
Typo was pointed
saw.
out to me
Yeah.
on President's Day is misspelled.
We are on the,
that's on the library holiday one.
Mine or wrong, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I saw that one.
No, I'm sorry. My mistake.
So we're still good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
passed.
And can I ask again who made the motion?
Frank.
And second? Thank you. My apologies.
No problem. Establishing holiday training calendars. Moving along quickly.
Normally, I never question it, but I simply make a comment about it. I'd sure like to see the library be open, even if it's on a skeleton basis, just for some of the days that are closed. When we start adding it all together, a lot of holidays are days that people actually would be very anxious to use the library. And I know it creates all kinds of problems. It's only my opinion. I'm not saying I'll vote for it the way it is, but just in the future, I wonder if there's some way, for instance, the day after Thanksgiving, that even when I was in high school, I spent a lot of those days libraries because that was coming toward the end of the semester and I needed to get work done. And the day after Thanksgiving somehow was a work day for me, you know, a study day. And that served me all the way through college. But this is not a college library, it's a community library. So it's different needs, but, and, you know, a number of these fall into that category. You know, things like Veterans Day, and now, I don't know, Columbus Day, when that becomes Indigenous Peoples Day all over the country, and, you know, we keep adding them in, and just a comment. I'm done.
I assume these are all county days, too, that are the county's closed.
County or national.
Right, county or federal.
Have we ever got a request for library to be open on any specific holidays? Curious.
This guy, I echo what you say, Frank.
Which days would you be looking at?
Well,
Thought one.
when I was on the library board, I said, you know, if you calculate how many hours we're open less than 25% of available hours, if you include 24/7. And I brought up the same points. Nights, weekends, and as you dive in a little bit deeper, there's union contracts, labor, how do you cover it? And, you know, the path could potentially be a access library when there's not staff here, but then who checks up on it at midday and all that other stuff. Logistically, it's a challenge. And quite candidly, it doesn't have the support of the board right now.
You actually said that in this, I remember the meeting, and it was right here in this room. I heard you say that. You put it this way, oh, it hurts me to see the library closed,
Yep.
and so on. What, all over Melsa libraries, is this typical? And I would guess through the state even.
All of the,
I would say so,
definitely the
yes.
state holidays. And there's really nothing more here than state and federal holidays.
You know, although we're starting to see more of the 24/7 access concept pop up in some of our neighboring systems, that would likely have, you know, could even be those unstaffed hours during closed, typical, traditional closed times, if that makes sense. So, but otherwise, I would say that, and I haven't studied all the other calendars, but I say likely they're very similar.
And you only have 3 staff training mornings, I noticed. And I'm sure you would like more, but
You know, and that's something too, unless we would ever opt to go in the direction of targeting 1 full day staff training day instead of having 3, you know, whether that would be beneficial in terms of the schedule throughout the year, but we haven't.
I think you'd want to look at what is the customer flow during the period and, you know, go to low customer or patron or whatever we want to guest flow. When that's the lowest, that's when we train.
That said,
I'll make a motion to approve the holiday and training schedule for
Second,
2024.
please.
can I get a second to the motion?
And I'll vote yeah.
Second? I'll second. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
See, I didn't want to move it. I didn't want to second it. But
I would have, you know, I'll just say if it was a college library, I would be like, yeah, open 24/7. Because I could see myself when I was in college, I was like literally sleep in college. And just make sure there's a coffee shop next to it.
Keep in mind that there are people in the county who depend on the library for internet service.
Right.
You know, so it's a little different than when we were young and you're only looking at books, but now that's the access to the internet.
Internet, social media, and things like that. Next item, approval of 2024 fines and fees. I guess the only question I had was there any change?
There is one recommended change, and we actually have, we because of the timing of the budget plan, we had already put this forward towards the, to the county, At the very bottom, where it says processing fee of $2, we're recommending that we go up to $3 on that. We are seeing, as we've mentioned previously, that our processing fees continue to go up from our vendors, and this fee has not been changed in nearly 15 years.
What's processing fee? What's that?
So that is, Patrick, can you speak?
If someone doesn't return a book and we have to replace it,
Okay.
we have the cost of the book and then we have to pay our vendor, Brodart, so much money to process it.
Okay.
And that amount has been going up.
Thank you.
I have one question, and it's just a question. For the non-resident fee of $60, what does that cover? Because if somebody is visiting and they come in and want to look at a book or newspaper, do they have to pay $60 to look at that book?
No, it's
Is
if
it?
you're actually gonna
Okay, if they're
check
checking
items
it,
out.
okay. That's
Yep.
what I figured.
Yep, good question though.
Sorry, just putting my do not disturb on.
No, I make a motion that we pay the
So
processing.
can I have a motion to accept
fee?
the fees?
Yes,
Yeah. And I'll second.
$3.
Okay. And you second it, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So I looked at the three of basically the extension request on 5.4 and 5.5. I don't have any, I'm just gonna do you have any discussion? Could we add the two together and just decide on the extension? Or do you have to do separate extensions, approvals?
They can go together, but I have a couple of updates regarding some questions that came up as the Dalkey board was meeting last week that we just wanted to provide some additional information.
Yeah, the only question I had on the 5.4 and 5.5 is that given that this was done one of them was a couple of years ago, and one of them was last year, and given that inflation has been pretty rampant around since then, like, are the estimates still valid? And should the estimate be revisited? That was my question I had.
And that wasn't a question, I'm looking at Gwen, because Gwen was part of the board last week, and I know you maybe had some comments you wanted to make, and then I had asked Paul as the grantee on this one too to speak a bit, but.
Yeah, well, what are we called?
The digital conversion lab.
No.
Oh,
The grant, so I was representative of the board, Patrick was the branch manager representative, Jody was there, Nick was there, and I forgot her name.
Kim from Watertown Friends.
From Watertown Friends were there. So, yeah, we spent about an hour and a half talking through them, going through all the detail. And we did spend quite a bit of time talking about the extensions on two of them. So I think, a couple things we talked about is, this is still just, year 3 of the process of the Dalkey grant. So
Right.
we're still kind of learning as we go. And I think the question came up, does the same form work to update the extension? Because it's the intent for the Dalkey grant to be something that could be completed in 1 year. If it's an extension, does the committee and the board just approve it, or does it need to go to the commissioners like a new grant does? And the selection committee changes every year, which is a good thing, but then, a couple of us that
You went there when you
know
did
what
the
the
first
discussion
grant,
was
right?
last year about the extension. So, and then I guess I kind of thought too is that, just from my project management days, you just know that, it's hard at the beginning of the year to anticipate everything, costs, labor, all that kind of stuff too. So maybe it's a scope and scale issue that we just need to get better at also. So, we did say, let's go ahead with the 2 extensions, except the media one. I think we were taken aback a bit that they were already planning another extension for 24. So that kind of told us something. So we just thought, maybe it needs to be rescoped or rescaled a bit, and let's see how much we can accomplish by, you know, the end of '24 and not necessarily think we should go, you know, on and on. Maybe it's a new grant then that gets pieced apart or something. But it just seemed like it just made things get a little bit more complicated. And then we did think the other extension, since it was only the second year, should go ahead. And then we all loved the Spanish one too, and definitely would recommend that moved ahead. I mean, we loved them all, but I think it's just sort of just raised that discussion about extensions.
So
and
were there 3 extensions? Because there's only 2.
two were extensions.
Two
and
extensions.
one was
One was
new.
new, okay.
Yeah.
And I had asked Paul just to pull, because we wanted to look at a little more detail about what had already been spent in the digital conversion lab, and just try to drill down a little more specifically on what equipment needs to still be purchased and the timeline of that throughout 2024. So and we did a little bit, well, not a little bit, we had to delve back in some invoices.
Right.
And I don't know if you'd like to speak to it for a few minutes.
Sure.
I put you on the spot.
I'm sorry?
Put you on the spot.
Oh,
Well, no, I had asked him previously, yeah.
And let me say right from the get-go that to the extent that you're frustrated or concerned, I am too, as the person who put forth the idea 2 years ago, that we're still at a point where we haven't gotten this thing really. We've gotten it out of the blocks, but we really haven't done one lap around the track yet, you know, a lame analogy. But, so I agree with you, right? And I'd have to go back and look at the wording on the request for the extension. And apparently I misspoke in there because I would not expect to be asking for another extension in 2025. But what we know about this, and we've known all along, that what we're doing is opening up a can of worms to some degree, and that systems that have done this, it's not here's the configuration, now we're done, this is all anybody's ever going to ask for. We understand that once we start this process of offering conversion possibilities for analog materials, that we probably are going to find people wanting more things that weren't originally part of it. The more obvious one are 8mm family films. We're not expecting, and the point was very well taken, that any technology project is your estimates are pretty much out of date before you hit the save button on the document, right? And so the longer we go, the more likely we are that we're going to be drifting from what original cost estimates were. I did refresh one. I mean, the big one really are the workstations themselves. They're not just anybody's laptop. These are very beefed up workstations that have a lot of processing power in order to process video, you know, that type of medium. So they're not inexpensive. The invoice for the one that I think it was it 3,200, Jody? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So we purchased 2 workstations. The idea of this grant all along is that there would be a lab that would float, that would be transferred between the 3 eastern branches and 1 lab between the western branches. And we've always, also, at least I've always thought that as we expand, one of the things we may want to do is purchase more units that have less travel between them, right? So maybe we eventually grow to every branch has this as a configuration. So those are some of the things that will probably happen down the road. But having said that, is we purchased 2 laptops, and they were about $3,200 each, plus software to go with them. So our expenses are somewhere up in the $7,000 or $8,000 neighborhood out of the grant, which I think was originally $13,000 for $15,000 for equipment and software. So we're down the road on this, right? Staff have configured the workstations and done some preliminary testing and developed some preliminary, what we're expecting will be ultimately the documentation for the public to use and the documentation for the staff to use as we work with the public. Where we are, and the pause on this right now is I felt as a manager that we really need to fully develop a plan about how the public is trained and what staff, how we schedule and offer staff support for this. Because this is not going to be people walking in and using the fax machine. And I don't mean to sound like a wise guy, but the sophistication of what we're offering here is almost going to demand, I mean, it is going to demand a lot of staff support. And I want to be sure that once we begin this process, that we're really able to fully support the public to do that. And then from there, we have gotten into some time and project management things. I felt as the manager of this that we needed to wait until we were ready to really commit to it. And with the staff vacancies we've had in the western branches that have pulled my time completely away from any possibility of working on this and being able to support the process. So it is where we are today. I developed, and what I'd like to do is, because it's a little bit, detailed, is I've begun to develop what I thought was satisfactory for the extension request, and this is fine. I don't feel criticized or anything. These are all good questions. Is develop a more detailed timeline and to send that out to you all, as well as a spending report of where we are today and some revised estimates on what the next wave of purchasing might look like. And so if that's satisfactory to you and answers your questions, otherwise please let me know more. But otherwise I absolutely concur. I mean, this has gone too long. And I would not expect to come back in 2025 for such a request. So I must have misspoken in the
Yeah,
in the
I
request.
remember what it said.
Yeah.
It was in the timeline about prepare for the next year.
Well, right, but I mean, we do, again, this is a project that's going to continue.
Right.
I mean, the completion of the spending of the grant, my request to you all is that we be allowed until December 2024 to spend the remaining $6,000 or $7,000 that we have. We could spend that before December in a heartbeat, right? But I don't know that that's our best, the wisest plan to do. I really do feel that the wisest plan is that let's get this rolled out and some real testing out on the front line, and then figure out from there what we're going to do with the remaining, as to whether we really do branch out into other media types, or whether we go to additional workstations for other branches, and then go from there.
Well, at the end of this grant, it's going to have to evolve into a program item, in the standard budget. It'll have to become a budget item, unless we line up another grant. But I understood the way the Dalkey grants were planned, where they were essentially seed money, not operating money.
Right, so the-
we get it created, we get it in place, and then we have to be prepared to provide budget money to operate beyond that.
Right. And so to that point is my expectation would be the ongoing cost of this might be licensing costs for the software. But
As well
once
as
the
the-
hardware is in place, the hardware is in place. Once the staff are trained, the staff are in place. We do need some, and we put in there for substitutes, and that's simply to allow frontline staff to be able to break away from frontline operations in order to themselves be trained. But once they're trained on this, I mean, and it is going to be a new added item, and Kevin and Patrick and I and others are going to then be committed to training all new staff on, right, for an ongoing basis, but that'll be absorbed into the budget. So back to the short answer, I believe the ongoing costs of supporting this beyond the grant will be whatever licensing we have for the software on the devices themselves.
Well, as I said, the review committee did approve going ahead because of time in, but just had enough reservations and clarification that it
Yep.
wasn't.
And they're well-founded, and thank you.
Okay.
So we need a motion for it, right?
Yeah, we do. I was just comments. I'm surprised as you're only approving a new one, and not like more than that, which is good because I thought that my only comment would be that if you have two already extending and you add a whole bunch more, it's like an accordion pushing on a project which will not complete.
And I think too we had several, this year, and for the time and energy that went into that for staffing and resources, but also now that those pieces are in place, I think that work continues too. So I think it's not like one and done necessarily. That was really creating some foundational work that staff want to just stay invested in too. And I on the flip side, I'm hearing exciting ideas for next year already. So it might be kind of just, taking a year to finish up a couple of these things, recharge, and then off we go again. And of course, we've had a lot of staff turnover too this last year. A lot of what's the word I'm looking for? It's just been a big transition year in a lot of ways throughout a lot of positions, shall we say. So I think this is, I think it's good to think about having this year as such and then moving forward. So I just wanted to add for the adult language learning, and I can pass this around on the very last page, just to add better clarification, because the collection piece of this has already been completed for that extension. So I noted that, Jessica Shank and I noted that in the budget in red at the top, that the collection piece is already completed for that. I know that was a question that came up at the grant board and needed some better clarification in the actual extension application.
Are we going to be voting on these? Have we decided we're going to vote individually on each one of them?
I guess my question would be, if there are no objections, we could vote them all at once. Unless you have questions regarding any of the other ones, if you are comfortable saying everything looks good to go, then we can vote all at once. But if you have questions, let's...
I just had a follow-up for Jody. Did you and Nick talk any more about whether extensions need to go to the commissioners or just the new one?
I think it's just the new one that needs to go forward to the commissioners. Mm-hmm.
So we might want to just phrase the extensions different than...
Okay. We'll do the dot 4 and 5 as one, and then we'll do the dot 6, which is the new one, separately. Can you add? Okay, so I will have a motion. Can we have a motion to accept and approve item 5.4 and 5.5, which were both extensions of the DOCI grant from previous years? Can I have a motion to approve that? Okay, I'm gonna motion to approve. Can I get a second?
I'll make a second.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
So passed. 5.4 and 5.5. Now in regards to the recommendation of the new project for the, I think it's called it's the Spanish program, isn't it?
Libros y Más, yes, the Spanish language collection and programs for youth.
Yeah, if there are, can I have a motion to accept that and approve it also?
I would move to accept it as presented.
And I second it, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
So passed.
Aye.
I think it's a
Moving
good
right
idea.
along. Now we have, there's no unfinished business from last week or previous meetings. So we're going to go right along if there are no objections to administrative reports, team updates, and we'll have Paul.
Pop around here somewhere. So, thank you. You have in front of you a hefty packet of paper. I cut down 3 or 2 today. But, it's such a full program series that we do each year, the summer reading program. So I'd like to walk you through the papers a little bit. The larger stapled packet is, there are 7 individual reports in there. There's the executive summary that I prepared that is trying to prepare the overarching comments, 2 pages of some prose and statistical summary. And then after that is you'll get into the branch reports from each of the individual branches. And 1 or 2 of the branches, because of their size, they actually have separate staff for younger children services and teen services. So you'll see 1 or 2 of those broken out. We meet, and we've really already started right now to start to plan for the 2024 summer reading program. It really is a long arch for which the planning process happens. We met last year in December as we started to call it a retreat, but we have, for that month's youth services team meeting, we extend it. A 2-hour meeting just simply would not be enough, so we spend more of a 3 to 4 hour block of time really getting the shell, the outline of what we're looking to do. There's a lot of it that is building upon success, right? You could call it cookie cutter. That's an oversimplification, obviously. But there's also new things that we're trying each year, and obviously the pandemic really forced our hand in reevaluating a lot of delivery methods and things like that too. So we do build on success, but we try to also introduce new things. A couple of the guiding principles that we've got going, one of them is that the Consortium of Summer Library Programs, which is a national organization, they provide a lot of artwork and theme and things like that. And so we embraced again last year that we would look to them for their artwork. So when you take a look at the bookmarks, for example, that you were given, one that we have in English, one that was for Spanish, is those art pieces were already provided to us. And it's like the best bargain in town. I think we spend something like $30 or $50 for a membership fee for the year. And the amount of artwork and other program outline materials, book lists, and things like that we get are just tremendous. Beanstack is the online tool that we use for recording the reading that the children are doing. And it is a very nice piece of software and a very responsive vendor. I think, that's Paul's opinion, is that they're responsive and continually growing their product. We first got it to use for summer reading program. Since then, we also use it for 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, and we use it for the Adult Winter Reads program. So our annual license fee with them is well spent. But it does allow people then to download an app to their portable devices and actually enter their book reviews, and for the children to do their reading activities. There are things that we guide them through. And so not only does that guide their reading, but it also then we use it on the back end for running the drawings that are part of the incentive prizes that they get. So with that, I'll then interrupt a little bit and talk about activity sheets. So we have reading activities for pre-K, for elementary age, and for teens, and they're separate, and they're, again, hoping to guide the reading, and they do any 5 of these. It kind of looks like a bingo card or whatever, but it's really not. They do them in any order or whatever. And so we track on how the participation in the activities, the reading activities are going, and that allows us to achieve one of our 4 outcomes that we're looking for summer reading program, and that is that they maintain their reading skills over the summer, right? And that's the avoiding the summer slide, and there's tons of research on all that, and I think we all are somewhat familiar with that. The second are the book review forms, and they're on letters on, or excuse me, legal paper rather. Excuse me. So the read, write, draw, and the teen book review form. These have been a part of our summer reading program as well as the activity sheet going back before my time. Right when I came here 8 years ago, these were already well in place. And actually, these, I think, some of it at least came out of Melissa, probably. So that's where they submit their book reviews, and this is the outcome that we're looking for there, is that they increase their reading comprehension skills, right? They read the book, and then they were able to talk to somebody about it. Or, in the case of some youth, is they will draw, so the read, write, draw, right? They can read and then either write about it or draw about it or do both. My kid, she would have drawn about it. That would have been her book review. She's now an artist, right? So we try and meet the kids where they are and with age-appropriate things there to achieve that reading comprehension. Increasing their learning is our third outcome that we're shooting for with the summer reading program, and those are the events that we offer that are, I call them workshops. They're more intended for a small group. Many of them have a registration, and that's part of our calendar and online tool for registering people for events. And we contract a lot, but not all that. Some of our staff will lead workshops, and then STEM and different things like that. And then in some cases, we contract with professional teaching organizations like McPhail and used to be called Artistry, and different places like that. And then the fourth outcome that we're looking for is that they enrich their lives with experiences that we offer, and those more typically have been our performers. One of the changes that has evolved over the past few years, somewhat driven by the pandemic, but certainly this year, there's been an intentionality about it, and that is, if you recall back to 2018, 2019, most of our branches had a performer every week, and they had their performer day, right? And then bigger branches would have 2 performances on performer day, right? And so within the course of a week, we were doing 9 large, group performances, and doing that over 9 weeks. So we're doing like 81 performances over the course of the summer. Coming out of the pandemic, some people felt, you know what? We don't miss those things as much as we thought we would. Obviously the attendance isn't going to be there. I mean, that's just mathematics. But in what are enriching the kids' lives, the feeling was that we could do some alternate things to get at that outcome, but we're simply not going to have the attendance level. And we're okay with that. And so that's where we landed over the past couple of years as we came out of the pandemic, started offering performers again. And so this year, it was an intentional decision by the branches, their staff, to offer 4 or 5 performances. And the bigger branches, I think only Chanhassen, I think, did double bookings on days. I don't think Chaska did again this year. And I know we did in Waconia. We simply did 1 performer when we had a performer. So those were intentional changes that will, if you look at the stat sheet, which is page 3 of your report, you'll see that the performers are way the heck down. We're okay. Right? We felt that the other places where we're offering content makes up for it. Quality, if you will, rather than quantity. But one of the things that really has popped over the course of the past few years, and that is the book reviews. If you take a look on that statistical chart about the 6th block down, total book reviews written by children and teen, you'll see that that has just grown and grown and grown, and it's continuing to go. And I think we can feel good about that. I would attribute, this is Paul's opinion, unofficial of the team, but Paul's opinion is I think part of that is the effectiveness of the incentive prizes that are provided to us by MELSA, tickets for the State Fair, tickets for the Minnesota Twins, tickets to go to Sea Life, among them, or from our Library Foundation, the gift certificate to Barnes & Noble, right? And so when we put those out there and we have an effective system for running drawings for people to be given those incentive prizes, the bean stack system, is we really have obviously come up with a very good way of increasing reading comprehension, or at least the way we measure it. So, great summer. We weren't without our challenges. The first day, first performer didn't show up at the site he was supposed to be at. There was an internal communication at their end within their performer. We've done follow-ups leading into it and everything. I mean, you know, so, and I'm saying this with a smile on my face. It was not funny. The poor librarian who was out on the front line that morning, that is a very difficult thing, to have 100 people sitting waiting for a performer who no-shows, right? But it truly was a lesson learned, I think, with the performer about watching their correspondence and what we send them as contracts and things like that. And then a lesson learned maybe on our part that we can't over-communicate with our performers, particularly at the beginning of the summer until we start to hit a rhythm. So, but other than that, and the other challenge we had with performers, any of us that were doing outdoors, which we were at Laconia, for example, and Victoria, and that was the air quality issues out in the big world, right? Nothing we can control about that, but for any of us who were planning outdoor events, that at the last minute we were watching the National Weather Service and pulling these events in and then offering them indoors and facilities for which they really maybe couldn't handle the audience size. And then the funding is, I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't thank the Library Foundation, who provides $7,000. Collectively, our friends groups contribute $7,200, and those things go towards the incentive prizes, the Barnes & Noble gift cards, the books that the kids get when they first when they submit their activity card, and then MELSA, where we receive a block of funding for youth services over the course of the year. And we use that for building out a lot of supplies, developing our in-house program kits, and all those things that also go into making the summer very successful.
Wow.
Questions? I
Thanks.
hope I got brief enough, but got
Just
enough.
have one question.
It was
Please.
wonderful.
I know, yeah, like you said, you know, your total book review is like higher than pre-pandemic. 19,000 on that 6 blocks, so it's really cool. But the only one I was curious also was the attendance at literacy events. Are those in-person events or do they include virtual events?
Both.
Because
And
those are also higher than pre-pandemic. Which is interesting.
so, let me turn my page to be sure I'm talking about the same thing.
You have an asterisk there.
Correct. And so, you'll see that those had really jumped
Should have read the note.
during the pandemic, and some of that was the attendance at online story times and other programs like that. But part of that is just the shift that we've done from having performers and shifting to things that are more content driven in-house. So,
That's
and
just
then
like
also
live virtual events, or are those videos that they can pull up and look at again?
combination.
Okay. Do you count it if someone looks at it after the fact? Curious? I'm just
Yes, and that is one of the advantages, and we've, it's evolving for us right now. I don't want to dwell too much on it, but this past year we've had a series called Monday Fun Day,
Right.
where it's posted, but then it's left up for a period of time. And so we don't see a lot of traffic right at the time of posting, but over the course of a week or two is, and so what we take from that, and we believe is the case, and that is that we're meeting people not only where they are, but at a time
When.
that's convenient for them.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate that.
You know?
Thank you.
And some of that we make assumptions about, but there are some different measures there about whether a person is just cruising through and clicking and passing through an event versus whether they're staying on the event, the virtual event.
And those statistics do all tie back to the state report that you all review in the springtime.
The other stat that's cool here too is the books, the material circulation. Now we know, all of us, that now as we're looking at our circulation reports, that we're benefiting, those numbers are benefiting from the automatic renewals. Is that correct, Patrick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but nonetheless, is we'd like to think that the increase in book circulation of during June, July, and August for children's materials that's gone up, that that is tied to the quality of the summer reading program that's being offered and the incentives that are giving the kids to read.
Do digital books do automatic renewal too, or just physical?
Automatic, if there's no way.
Digital?
Yeah.
So when it comes to costing on that, if we pay $100 for a digital book and we get 25 uses, does that starve it for, is it one or is it two, does it count as 2 uses?
No, every time it gets checked out, my understanding, publishing works counts as a cert. So it gets renewed just like a physical book that counts as a cert. I'm not answering your question.
I'm just thinking about the cost. We pay for a physical book once, we pay for a digital book and it has an expiration,
Yeah.
use. So does that, if I checked out the book today, it automatically renews, am I paying for 2 uses or 1? See what I'm saying?
But you only got one digital version, so it's only one use.
You're paying for one use, I
Okay.
believe.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. And part of it is that there's so many different models
Yeah,
in the ebook industry.
Yep.
So a lot of it has to depend on the one that we lease, and we only have so many searches, the one that we bought,
Yep.
one per user. So really, let me dig in with Serena,
yep.
who does our digital book purchasing, give you a better answer.
So for the rest, just to connect sometimes my mouth moves faster than my thoughts. My thoughts move faster than my mouth. Is if we're seeing a shift from physical books to digital books, and if digital books are more expensive per use, and if we're accelerating the per use based on automatic renewals, it might make sense to stretch that dollar by not having automatic renewals on our digital copies, because in physical form, they don't expire. You can use them twice, you can use them 100 times, you're only paying for the book once. And so as I see our collection shrink because of the budget, because of the digital, I just am thinking through the best impact for the system. Is it to limit automatic checkouts on digital or not?
And what's reported here, just bring it back to this report, the book circulate, this is physical materials.
Okay.
These stats here, these do not include ebooks.
Got it.
But we could certainly, if you wanted to see what the digital ebook of children's and teen books were during the summer,
Yep.
I can have Serena pull that for you for next meeting.
I'm less concerned about that than I am the economics of stretching the
Yeah, okay.
buck. And I'm hopeful, I don't think there's numbers on this, but I'm hopeful that window for the robot in Chanhassen has helped circulation as well, where people grab books and they put them through the robot. Is that material? Would that be material or immaterial, or is there any way to find out?
I can certainly tell you it's increased engagement of kids enjoying,
Yeah.
enjoying it. I can't tie it to any other percentages, so
Okay.
I can tell you there's lots of engagement.
Got it.
Thank you. Next, we will find from Jody whether we broke.
Thank you, Charles. No, we're in a good place. We're in a good place. So yeah, no major updates at this moment on the budget. I always welcome questions. At the September 5th board meeting, the commissioners did approve the preliminary 2024 budget. So that is in process. And there'll be a public input meeting, and then final decision on that budget will take place in December. So,
The only quick question I had was like what Paul was talking about, that he's now planning for 2024 summer reading program.
Yep.
And how does that fit into the budgeting that Jody's talking about?
Sure, and I was going to suggest that as we were sitting next to each other, ask a similar question. So I think we can expect, and where we'll bring this to our Friends of the Library groups as they're planning 2024, is that their contribution will remain the same And the same for the Library Foundation. That request has already gone in. And we don't have a budget with the county for programming. So that's just not a part of the library budget per se. And at the the MELSA Youth Services team meeting that I attended this afternoon, the report seems to be favorable about what the 2024 allotments will be for the county systems, so that we can expect that what we'll receive for all youth services programming throughout the year from MELSA will be the same or possibly increase. And so that's good news. And then the other component is legacy funding as well. I did not mention that earlier, my oversight. And that is that paying for the performers and Monday Fun Day presenters, is that a significant portion of that has come from legacy funding. And we expect that to be, we already know what that is, that's already bumped up a little bit, right?
Yep, that and legacy amounts bumped up just a little bit because of the legislation that passed this year. So that's great news as well for what we are able to provide.
Yeah, and then when when we did the legwork on presenting to MELSA our reimbursement request for all of our youth services programming at the end of the year. Once that is completed, then we'll know how much of our library foundation, that $7,000, how much of that we actually had to use. So whatever our youth services team, whatever happens with underspending, stays with the library foundation ultimately.
I would just add there's some 2-3 things that will affect that might affect circulation of materials next year. Is in the 2024 budget is to just help us with inflation. There's a request for physical materials, more money so we can actually be buying the same amount of things we were 5 years ago that would not because of inflation increased processing. There's money for more digital, request for more digital materials. And if we get more digital materials, that's going to increase circulation. And also at the MELSA Collection Development meeting, there's going to be a huge purchase this year of easy reader material to go along with the state standards on how they're going to teach reading, and also a large purchase of comic books digitally, which I think will appeal to teen readers. So there is within MELSA some money coming, and in 2024, as the budget goes through, as I presented it, Jody presented it, then there'll be some money that will support circulation and collection.
Okay, thank you. So we're not broke. That's good. Next, we have a library director update.
Sure, and actually one of the pieces that I'll share from the director's report ties also into the 2024 budget request. Next spring, our RFID vendor contract is up for renewal or to switch vendors, and because of the cost of that, the projected cost, and so RFID, that would be all of our self-checkouts that you utilize, but also all of our staff stations, where if you've interacted and seen the RFID, it's a flat pad, there's software components, there's hardware components. So because of the cost of that and the age of the equipment, we needed to go out for bid for that. So we're currently in that process. I just wanted to make you all aware. We had our first demo with one of the vendors last week. We have another one tomorrow, considering other vendors and capability out there as well, and what would be best for, really we're trying to put customer service as our forefront of what we're looking at, but also what is going to be very useful for our staff. So it's a huge project, and so part of that has certainly gone into the 2024 budget as well to help support that. So the RFID tags that are already in all of our materials, we will not have to replace that so far if we were to switch vendors. So that's a good piece of the news, certainly, because that was a huge undertaking when that happened. So that was, I included that. I would anticipate working with Bob Lincoln, our systems administrator. He's hoping to have a recommended vendor by potentially by the November board meeting to bring to all of you for review. And then it would go under your recommendation onto the county board for approval as well.
Is the goal to switch out by May 2024? Right? Because your contract expires in the previous one.
Exactly. And we've got some folks from county IT that are working with us as well. So just pulling some different staff members together to get a good perspective, working through a lot of rubrics, a lot of evaluation pieces to make sure that we're not missing anything along the way.
So is the current provider also bidding or they're not? Okay.
Yes.
So if they do win the bid, then it won't be as big a change then, or will it still be a material change?
It wouldn't be as big of a change. So that's a factor as you look at the bids. Yep.
Thanks.
Also, I just would like to make one other note in my director's report from last month and this month. We've had a couple of exciting awards receptions, one of which was the Peer Awards, and we had several staff members nominated for those. Earlier this fall, Heather Wiegand, Jameen Deal, Catherine Bauer, and Michelle Myers. And then at our most recent Public Services Division Awards, both Patrick Jones and Bob Lincoln received 2 nominations for Colleague of the Year Supervisor. Heather Wiegand received Colleague of the Year nomination. And then Susan Bernstein, who does all of our social media, works primarily in the Victoria, but some in the Chanhassen branch, was nominated for Perennial Star and received that award out of the other nominees that were put in that, under that award. So very exciting. So congratulations, well deserved for all of them.
So who decides that?
So the Public Services Leadership Team that I am a part of, and that is led by Nick Coctavio. And then we have representatives from Water Management on that team, Public Works. I'm trying to remember all the different departments that
Soil
fall under.
and
Yeah.
Management.
Yep. So.
Anything from Nick?
Not today.
Next on is trustee and commissioners report. So I'm just going to go through the regions. Chanhassen and Victoria.
I'll have 3 things. Number 1 is actually in last month's report was lots of pictures of our 20th anniversary celebration, which was co-sponsored by the Chanhassen Friends of the Library. We had a children's, in the morning we had people saying nice things about us, including Commissioner Ruderman. We had a presentation with stained glass window-like object from Chanhassen Elementary School, saying this was done 20 years ago when the building opened. We had a children's performer in the morning. During the afternoon, we had cake, and if you've been to the Chanhassen meeting room, there's photos arrayed for the past 20 years of the building. And then in the evening, we had a photographer, author, Stan Tequila, who presented as well. We had great attendance at all the events. We had a good door count for the rest of the day. We gave away lots of nice bags. We had lots of good engagement talking with patrons, so it was a great day. The 2 things that are in this packet, I want to point out, there's something that is rarely seen, a picture of empty shelves, where we do the Chanhassen bookshelf. And the neat thing is those shelves are still empty. Because of the Friends coming up with Free Day, we did our regular book sale, and on Monday we just opened the doors and said anything that's left, just take it. And because of that, did we throw anything away? I wasn't there that morning. Very few.
No.
Everything got sent away to Better World Books or had already been taken.
We almost didn't have enough for Better World.
Yeah, that's what Beth said, it was
At the
close.
next meeting, we're going to strategize the timing of that. But people are already dropping off donations.
Yeah, that's true. So the shelves are filling up. At the
They
moment,
were empty for a little while.
Yeah. And then the other thing is there's a really nice picture of the Works doing a science STEM program with kids. That is a Dalkey grant funded. And so I always like to feature the Dalkey grant funded things. There's also ones in there for Games and Gatherings, which is Dalkey funded. So that Dalkey funding did really well for us for programming at Chanhassen. And that is all I have. Thank you.
question, but I just want to move along quickly. Next is Chaska Library, so I guess it's not you this time.
It's still me.
Oh, is it?
So one of three things is next month you'll get to hear from Kevin.
No pressure.
So glad to have him on board very much. Really looking forward to having him be a part of our team. So two other quick things. One is if you are parked out in the parking lot, make sure you look at the new shiny blue book drop. Please don't hit it. We're very proud of it. We'll see how long it takes, but we were hoping with the color, maybe it would be more visible. So that finally arrived. So that was great news. Staff were really happy to have a working unit again, definitely.
We should put a blinking light on it.
Exactly.
People might put their mail in it.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Is there a way of automatically sorting the mail out of the books?
Yeah, we'll keep you posted on that. The other piece I wanted to mention, we had our Jeff Olmsted and Jessica Schenk went out to the Latin Music and Food Festival here in town and just had a great opportunity to visit with all the attendees and interact and visit with partners, local partners. That will be hopefully very beneficial for the adult language learning grant. In the children's area now, there's a poster board, and I have a picture of it here. They had folks, if they wanted to, decorate a butterfly, and so that's hanging now in the children's area. So great community event. They were really excited to be out there to be a part of that.
Thank you. Next, we have the Norwood Young America Waconia Water Town.
I'll go for the traditional three things as well. On the downside is today we received a resignation from Crystal Murillo, who's one of our longer serving library assistants, primarily at the Waconia branch. Her and her family are moving upstate. For those that work alongside of her, we've been hearing lots of updates about their cabin and property up north. And so they'll be heading up there to live full time. And so we will miss her. The other library assistant position is still vacant. We're hoping that recruitment process will be wrapping up soon. We're waiting to hear back, I think, on recommendations, doing the follow-up work on those phone calls and things like that. So that's staff update. The Waconia branch is never a dull moment, right? So we got a call about a week ago from the county. Long story short, well, we knew that the city of Waconia had been planning to upgrade the phone system. Each of our branches, at least the western ones, our phones are provided through the city. So we have 3 different branches, 3 different phone systems. City of Waconia is upgrading their phone system for City Hall, for which we ride on the coattails and benefit from. Out of the 3 phone systems, it's actually the most modern one, and the one that if you were to ask us, we wouldn't have asked for an upgrade, but there you are. But a good point was made by the county, and that is that maybe we don't put the Waconia branch through an upgrade with the city and their phone system, when the ultimate goal is to bring the library branches onto the county's phone system. So, without any opportunity for planning time or lead time, is in the middle of migrating the phone system in the next week. Very short window of time. But otherwise, our migration date is going to be next Thursday, October 19th. Otherwise, our migration date for going with the city of Waconia, which we're not going to do, would have been the following week on the 25th. So very tight window. But we know that the end of it will be happy, and that's a good thing.
Is the county system similar to what you're having right now, or is it a different one altogether?
You all up in admin are on it, right?
Mm-hmm. I would say it's fairly similar, although, you'll be able to dial straight straight to an extension. There's some benefits there, and I know we're looking at transferring our Chaska phones as well to the county, and there'd be benefit in being able to transfer some of those calls more easily. So and just having the support of county IT, having it all uniformed together.
Yep.
So,
And some other ways to, down the road, it's not going to be coming out of the blocks, but down the road to be able to integrate with some of the other technologies that we have. So the voice over IP is the catchphrase for this. And then the third item from the west is we're coming down the home stretch on our book sale season. So book sale number 8 at the Watertown branch is this weekend. So that'll be regular hours of operation at Watertown on this Friday, Saturday, and Monday. There's a book sale, Watertown branch, and they have a significant number of books to sell. And then 2 weeks after that, the last weekend in October, out at Norwood Young America, their book sale is hours of library operation on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And so that'll be 9 book sales in the western branches this hefty undertaking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one, we have any updates, Matt?
Yeah, so we talked about the challenge, we talked about the hours of operation. I like to reiterate, and it's probably more for your benefit, new guy, but Melsa stole what we already do here. We rotate our library board meetings to the different buildings. So we get a chance to, during the course of the year, see all of our libraries. And oftentimes there's a speaker that comes in and you get to hear what's going on in the local community. We do the same thing at Melsa. We rotate, and so they, for the first time in a long time, had a chance to be in Chanhassen a number of months ago. We also have a chance to lead in the area of innovation, and so we had a conversation yesterday with the library directors at Melsa, which every other meeting is with the library directors. And our conversation is with these additional dollars, I won't call them new dollars because they're probably deferred by many years, but is there an opportunity to carve out an innovation fund with the heart intention to accelerate projects that you sometimes don't get around to. You don't think about 10 years in the future or 20 years in the future or this one last thing. And so I think Jody and team brought to the table 2.5-year head start because of what we're already doing with the Dalkey grant. And so I just wanted to say that. Also, it's rare that the guy that represents 3.5% of the Melsa population is the chair. And so I'm pretty proud that not only with solidifying what's happening at the Capitol with the dollars, but because we know those dollars are coming, we don't have to sit on as many rainy day funds. And so Carver County will be the recipient of $50,000 to $80,000 of incremental dollars this next year because we don't have to sit them on in surplus. There's a little bit of active dialogue on that one leading up to it, but it's like, why have it in a bank account when you can get it to use it locally? That also leads me kind of to the next point, which is this money isn't to cover operations. This money is to do plus things. Right, like things we haven't gotten to, or the tail of those, and that was illuminated with the innovation fund. Is okay. Well, you put it out into the abyss. At some point, it has to be levy funded or otherwise funded. So we, Jody and team added a lot to that conversation. I had a chance to attend on behalf of Melsa and Carver County the Olives and Opus Friends event in St. Paul on Sunday night. 750 people that came out to write big checks for the friends of that. And I just registered in my head that next year I'd like somebody from our friends to join me, and maybe Jody as well, to see how they put on that event. And I just plant the seed. Because of our relationship with Melsa, we get exposure to some of that stuff. And in the not so distant future, Chaska has funded 2026 is the funding year to start construction on a new library, and 2027 to be open. That's a huge opportunity to accelerate interest in Friends. And I think that sometimes people pigeonhole members of Friends to be, people that are of an older generation. With the momentum of the library, with the momentum of the new library, new staff, new things that are going on, it's an opportunity to reinvigorate some of those Friends groups by seeing what does everybody else do. And so I wanted to share that. And then that's all I had.
Thanks.
Yeah,
More money.
more money.
Well, Alan is not here, so anybody has any library foundation updates?
just one quick update, if I may share on his behalf, and he's at a council meeting in Norwood tonight that fell on at the same time, but we have a foundation meeting this Thursday evening in Laconia, and the foundation will be reviewing some funding requests that are coming forward from the library teams.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys, okay, thank you. And Ted B, just gonna But any questions, any input, or what do you think about the whole thing?
I think so. I know, and I didn't get to be here last meeting.
Oh, it was fun, man. You should
I
have.
totally
It was
missed that,
a
I guess. I read about it when I got back into good cell service. I was like, oh, I should have been there, but I think you guys did a good job with that.
And with that, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Can we get a second on that one?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 So done.
So done.